Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here. So these are two statements that you see here, right? One, biometrics is unique, accurate, easy to use, and non-transferable way to identify a person. So we all understand this. So that's why we all are using biometrics in our ID systems. At the same time, there's another statement. Biometric is like a non-changeable password. Once lost, it's lost forever. So in this session, we'll be discussing more about how to safeguard your password, right? How to safeguard your biometrics. So again, as I said, I'm not getting into more details. We'll be discussing some basics, and we have plenty of time in the next 2 days. So if there are more queries that you have, we can discuss in deep. So if you look at biometrics, there are 3 key areas, right? One is, of course, the collection of biometrics. It could be for authentication, it could be enrollment, anything. Second is there is uniqueness assurance. Biometric is unique. So you have a mechanism to assure the uniqueness of an ID using biometrics. The third is, of course, identity verification. So once an ID is issued to you, you can prove that it's you by giving your biometrics, and that's called identity verification, right? So let's look at the first section, biometric collection, right? As I said, I'm not going to explain how we are going to collect biometrics, what are the basics, but then these are like some basic principles that you are all aware, that you have seen in your daily life. The first one is the number lock. So I remember I had a number lock when I was a kid, a very small one. The number was 155, right? You need the same combination to lock a box and unlock a box. So that is basically a symmetric encryption, right? You have a key, and you have the same key to encrypt and decrypt the data, right? So this is why I asked a previous question earlier. So the love is in the key. So this goes back to 2012, just before my wedding. I dropped a love letter to my wife, okay? I'm making it public, but still. So what I did is I used a key, something like a number lock, came out with a letter, because I wanted the old-fashioned letter, right? Came out with a letter, used a number combination, created a message, and sent it her by post. The only objective was that I didn't want her parents to read it, okay? So then I just remembered, okay, yeah, I'm doing this session, so probably this is a good example of a symmetric encryption, because I have a key to read this message. I called up my wife yesterday, was asking, hey, I sent you a mail, you decrypted it, I know you read it, but do you remember it? She said, no, I lost the key. I don't know. I forgot what I wrote. And I thought, okay, this is the perfect example of a symmetric encryption, and the key is lost. But the fun fact is, one of my friends from Germany, he said, this is German. So in this case, the symmetric encryption is done using the German language, right? So just one example. Now coming to the next one, we have something called padlock, right? When I say padlock, it's a key or a lock where you can just click the padlock without a key, and then that's good enough to lock it. So you don't need a key to lock it, right? But in order to, once you click it and lock it, you need a private key to open it, right? So that's a padlock. So in this case, this is synonym to something called asymmetric encryption. So you have something called a padlock, something open, available to everyone for encrypting something. That means put it in a box and then encrypt it. And then you have a private key with you to open it. So you only have a key that is kept with you, and you don't have, the person who is having a padlock doesn't have access to the box once he clicks and locks it, right? So this is an asymmetric encryption example. So this much is clear. I'm sure you all understand this. Bear with me, don't sleep, but still, right? Now, what we are going to do is a couple of other technologies. So you see something called hashing. So hashing is basically for ensuring the data integrity. So it's a function that can be run on any data. The same function will result in some combination. You can see here, Fox is run through a hashing function. It gives a combination of A, C, D, E here. And again, the same hashing function applied on the same data is giving the same hashing results. The part is, the hash data cannot be used for constructing your original letter. So forks cannot be constructed using your hash data. The third time, if you see, the same hashing function resulted in some other text. The reason is the data was tampered. The forks has got a small x. Your hash got changed. That means your data integrity is at risk, is gone, right? Again, very basic example. One more basic concept, right? Digital signature. Not going into the details there. This is exactly similar to your wet signature. So you have a signature, you sign a document for authentication, non-repudiation, and integrity purposes. And who has got access to your signature? Only you know how to put your signature, right? So it's a private to you. The signature is private to you. And in the terms of digital world, the signature is your private key. So you have a key that is private to you, and you will safeguard it. Could be on a USB drive, it could be on a file or an HSM, it could be anything, right? Now the specimen signature, this is my specimen signature. If someone wants to validate whether this is Sanjith's signature or not, he can just take a look at my specimen signature and compare it. So in the digital world, again, that's the public key. So again, there is a private key and public key. Private key used for signing, which is with you, it's private to you, and a public key just like a specimen signature using which you can validate your digital signature. Anyone can validate your digital signature, right? So let's come to the biometrics a little bit, right? So here, we all know that the biometrics data is captured during enrollment because you need to collect the biometrics, or during a verification transaction. Your biometrics are collected during a identity verification transaction as well. How do you make sure that the data goes all the way secure, right? So in our secure biometric interface, our specification of collecting biometrics, whatever I have explained so far is a combination of all of them, right? You hash the data, you hash the biometrics, you encrypt it. That too, encryption is a combination of your padlock and number lock. It's not single encryption. It's a session key encryption and public key encryption. Then you digitally sign the data, and this is the data block that is reaching the ID system. So you have multiple levels of assurance, technology level assurance that is built into the specification. Yeah, so I'm not going into more details. I hope we are on the same page. Now, the main question is this sufficient, right? So I have a biometric device. The data is traveling all the way to the ID system, and I did a encryption, hashing, digital signing, all those mechanisms. Data is protected. No one is able to take the data out when it's in transit. Is that sufficient? Now I'm introducing you to something called a scalable attack. What if there is no biometric device at all, right? Instead of a biometric device, you have a database of biometric images. And instead of the resident being there physically, someone is replaying the biometrics. They are just injecting biometrics left and right, right? So that's a scalable attack, because if there's an ID system and ID system's primary key or the prime word associated with a ID system is trustworthiness. It has to be trustworthy enough. Now, if someone, a rogue developer sitting next to a computer and just injecting 1,000 fingerprint images instead of a device or a resident, that loses the credibility of the ID system. So it's a scalable attack. It's a very serious attack model, right? Now, there are cases where the biometric devices that are qualified for a ID usage, people just change that in the field, right? It could be a cheaper device, could be a non-qualified device. How do you really handle these kind of issues? Because some cases, especially the country where I'm coming from, it's like 1.3 billion population, we are proud. It's a large country. And what will happen if someone uses a rogue device which is not approved in a remote village? You cannot track it. How do you do that, right? Now, how to talk to the device in a standard way? Because there are a number of applications used for authentication, ID verification. Now, how do you make sure that each of these integrations are not hard-coded integrations where you do the same effort every now and then? How do you standardize how you talk to the devices? So the answer is, we came out with a secure biometric interface. So this is basically an interface, a biometric interface, a set of specifications which are encapsulating the previous technology controls that I mentioned. On top of it, also a capturing environment, ensuring a qualified capture, ensuring no external biometrics are injected. So no biometric injections are possible in this qualified biometric layer. And it's also addressing the other security or threats that I was mentioning in the previous slide. Now, this is also a managed layer. So when I say managed layer, have you just, have you seen how your mobile phones are updated, right? You'll get a notification, hey, there is a security patch that is due, and you need to update your phone. This is a managed concept. Your phone is getting updated centrally by someone. So here again, this particular environment, which is qualified by the partner, the device manufacturer or a provider, that will be centrally managed just like a mobile phone. It has got a lot of controls, cryptographic controls here, just to make sure that you are running on the latest updated security levels every time. So I think that's all with the collection part of it. I told you this is a very basic session, so I'm not going into more details. Now the second is the deduplication part of it, right? So biometrics is unique, and it's very easy or very powerful when you use biometric for a deduplication activity, because your biometrics are unique in nature. How do you do that? Let's say you are enrolling into the system. You are a new person who is getting into the system, trying to enroll and get an ID. So the first thing what will happen is your biometric will be fed into an engine, a deduplication engine called ABIS, Automated Biometric Identification Engine. So that engine is nothing but a database of all the previous biometrics that has gone into the ID system, right? It will be compared with all the biometrics. If there is a match with any of the previous biometrics that are in the system, that means this person is trying to fool the system. This person is trying to enroll once again because I got his biometric data already in the system, right? So it's a 1:n match. Now, when a ABIS system is used, there are two possible results, right? So let's say Ujjwal is enrolling now, and he has already done an enrollment. He's trying to fool this, you will not, but I'm just giving an example. So he's trying to fool the system by enrolling again. What will happen is, he will be matched with a previous record biometrically. Now the engine will just say that, hey, I think this is a match with a previous enrollment. Okay, this person might be trying to trick the system. Check carefully before issuing the ID. It will not be able to take a decision there itself, whether this is a duplicate or not. The reason is, the data that you have in this engine is limited. You don't have a lot of information. You just have abstracted biometric information in this engine, nothing more. Now, what will happen next? If the engine says, yes, check carefully before issuing an ID, then it goes to something called manual adjudication. A trained operator will check these two enrollment packets very carefully. They will compare various things, including the photograph, including the other documents that are submitted, other biometric elements. You can see here face, iris, fingerprint, all of them are compared left to right. The left is a new registration, the second registration that Ujjwal did, and the other one is probably a previous registration that the system thinks is a potential duplicate against with. Now, again, you have multiple ways of doing that, right? Because we have a lot of partners who are here. They have got various ways of looking into the biometrics. So here, if you see this one again taken from a partner solution, the biometrics is again seen deeper. It's going into the minutia level. It's going to an overlap-based match, an SDK level match, just to make sure that whether this is a real, new enrollment or is it matching with someone else. So once the manual adjudication is done with all the information in hand, there are two possible results. One is, yes, Ujjwal is trying to fool the system. He cannot be given one more ID. Second is, he is not a duplicate. Probably, it was a small mistake. Maybe the ABIS didn't do the proper job. Issue an ID because he is not a duplicate, right? So, why fine-tune this system? I think this part is very important, right? So, there are two. I'm introducing you to two terminologies. One is FNIR, that is false negative identification ratio. That means a ABIS system is not able to flag a potential duplicate. So in that case, what will happen? There could be more duplicates in the system. So Ujjwal will have 3 different IDs or 4 different IDs. He will have multiple service delivery points using different IDs, right? Second is false positive identification ratio. This one is that the AB system flags when Ujjwal is trying to enroll for the first time, it says, I see 1,000 matches in my system against Ujjwal. So what will happen in this case? The load on your manual check will be high. So one is more duplicates in the system. Second is more load on the manual work, the manual mapping, manual checks. So you need to find the balance, right? So that balance is very important in any ID system. How many duplicates can you allow in the system? I cannot preach anyone. A country will have its own requirements on what are their tolerance levels in terms of duplicate IDs. How trustworthy is your system? That will exactly depend on how many Ujjwals are there in the system, right? Ujjwal, I'm so sorry. This was the best example, okay? So that's with ABIS. Moving on, the next component is Ujjwal got an ID. Again, I'm picking Ujjwal. So Ujjwal got an ID. Now Ujjwal is trying to authenticate himself, right? He is coming to the system, giving his biometric information. This biometric information is now matched with the original enrollment data of Ujjwal, just to make sure that, hey, this is matching or not. Who is doing that match? It's done with a biometric library or a set of, it's a biometric SDK engine that is specialized in matching 2 different biometric data. So Ujjwal is trying to authenticate with a fresh capture, and the data that is collected during enrollment, the original enrollment, is given to the same system. The SDK is now trying to match these 2 biometric images. Possible results. There are 2 results. One, the system will say, this is definitely Ujjwal because I see the biometrics are same. Second is, no, it is not Ujjwal because it hasn't reached the level of confidence that I want to declare Ujjwal as the right person. So if you see, there is something called a level of confidence. That is nothing but the threshold of the matching engine. So you have a threshold. That is the level of confidence that you need to declare if it's a match or not. Now again, there are questions. How do you set the match success criteria? How do you set a threshold? Open question. Let's discuss offline, but open question, right? Now, this is the final slide. I hope you are not sleeping. Once again, checking. So there are 2 terminologies here again, right? One is false reject ratio. A genuine person is not able to authenticate. So again, Ujjwal is trying to authenticate, but I have set my bar in the SDK so high. The level of confidence I need to get to declare this is a match against Ujjwal's original data is so high that even Ujjwal is not able to match with his own data. That is false reject ratio because you are falsely rejecting someone, right, from the system. This is directly impacting your inclusiveness because some people who are with a faded fingerprint, and then there are so many cases. I'm sure Toby is here. He's working on many other examples on the same nature. So, you are rejecting a person from the system just like that. Second is false acceptance ratio. So I thought, okay, my level is, the threshold is really set on the higher side. Ujjwal is not able to authenticate. Let me lower it. I'm lowering it to a point where 1,000 other people are able to authenticate as Ujjwal, right? That's an imposter trying to authenticate as Ujjwal. Now, I don't know if Reba is here. No. So she was asking, hey, Sanjith, in your session, probably you need to give a guidance to the countries that what is the right FAR and FRR in your system. So I can give an example. So for example, India's Aadhaar system, it's working on 2% FRR at the rate of 0.01 FAR. So your FAR, that means you have a tolerance of allowing an imposter 1 in 10,000. That's your chance of allowing an imposter. That's your trustworthiness. In that scale, 98% of times, the real Ujjwal should succeed in the system. That's what the scale that is set for Aadhaar in India. Now, is that the same for all the countries? No. So I would request you to look up. There will be a smoke detector. So the question is, the smoke detector also has got a threshold, right? It will create an alarm beyond a threshold. Do you think the setting is the same for this room versus a nuclear plant? No. It has got different settings for different requirements. Similarly, countries has got different requirements on their tolerance, their accuracy, their performance, and more importantly, the trustworthiness and inclusiveness. I think that's all from my end. Again, balance is the key. Thank you so much for listening to me. Have a wonderful 2 more days here. Thank you.